The following podcast contains spoilers and words like piss, shit, and fuck. We watch the thing. We watch the thing. Hello, all you beautiful people out there in podcast land. It's your boys, B Dizzle and Dave. How you doing, buddy?
I am great. How are you, my friend?
I'm also great because I think this is going to be a fun one. On the back of last week's review of Spider-Verse, I said to you, what if we do our top 5 comic book movies? And you leapt up and down with joy.
With glee.
I think this is going to be a fun one, though. You messaged me during the week saying that you had a short list of something like 45 movies or something. How did you go dwindling that down?
It wasn't easy. It wasn't easy at all. I literally came up with about 30 off the top of my head, and then after Googling, which was probably a mistake, that went up to almost 50. So I had to kind of look at, was I sort of at least moderately familiar with the source material?
Yeah.
How good was the film in general? And then most importantly, just did I have particular love for it? And so I kind of painfully got it down to 5, but I'll chuck the whole list up in the Facebook group.
Yeah, good idea.
Later, and I would love for people to come in and comment on, what films they love, what they don't.
Nice.
What mistakes I made.
I'll throw my list up too, but mine's a lot shorter because I had no problem with my very short list of 5 and 3 honourable mentions. And I'm sure that our listeners will yell at me that I'm wrong about things because, as some people probably predict, there's no MCU on this list, there's no DCEU on this list.
Likewise.
It's I think this is going to be a fun one. So since this is kind of your real bread and butter topic, why don't you kick us off this week?
Okay. My number 5 is a bit of a stretch because it wasn't released as an adaptation of a comic. But there was a lawsuit that came along saying, hey, wait a minute, this is really similar to a short story that was in a Judge Dredd annual once. And subsequently, they did have to add that in as a based on. So I'm claiming it. It's a film that I have a huge amount of love for. It's a 1990 sci-fi horror called Hardware.
Right, I've not even heard of this.
Okay. It's written directed by a South African fellow called Richard Stanley, who hasn't done a great deal over the years. He did one film after this called Dust Devil, which pretty much no one apart from me has seen. He was then on board to direct The Island of Dr. Moreau.
Oh, right.
Val Kilmer and Marlon Brando,
Yep.
David Thewlis, and the problems on that production are legendary and have a documentary about them. And he subsequently retreated into the jungle for about a decade and made a few documentaries and didn't emerge until, about 3 years ago when he released the fantastic Color Out of Space with Nick Cage. The Lovecraft adaptation, which is also very, very good. Hardware is as I said, it's a post-apocalyptic sort of setting. You've got Dylan McDermott and John Lynch, who are these mates who are they go out and they scavenge in the sort of desert badlands, very Mad Max sort of setting, and he finds refuse and rubbish and crap out in the polluted radioactive desert space and brings it back and sells it, and that's kind of his bread and butter. He brings these robot parts back to his girlfriend, played by Stacey Travis, I want to say her name is, so I'm going to, who is an artist, and she makes sort of sculptures and things out of found objects. However, one of these robot parts that he finds turns out to be part of this government drone killbot thing that comes to life and starts causing all sorts of carnage. You've got fantastic cameos in there by Lemmy from Motorhead. You've got Iggy Pop as the voice of this sort of radio DJ who, I don't know, semi-narrates a little bit over the course of things as this DJ, based very heavily off an industrial band, Psychic TV, with Genesis P. Orridge, for those who are into that sort of thing. It's very violent, very stylized, very sort of heavy metal in tone, and has a real sort of surreal touch to it as well towards the end. Just a unique film. I'm such a fan of this. And it doesn't get enough love. So even though it's a little bit of a stretch in terms of the brief, I'm shoehorning it in there, and there it shall remain. Hardware.
I will add it to my list for sure. My watch list, that is. All right. Number 5 on my list. Over to me. This is, I believe, my one and only, film that is based on a Japanese manga. Not a Japanese film, however. It's a Korean film, South Korean.
I think we have a crossover.
I think we probably do.
Continue.
I thought this might crack your list because, of course, I'm talking about Park Chan-wook's Old Boy.
Yes, you are.
Which is a phenomenal film. Great, great film. I'm glad that this is on your list. I wasn't sure if we'd have any crossover, but if I knew that if we did have one, this would be the one. How much higher is this on your list then?
It's a bit higher.
Well, if it's higher on your list, why don't you tell me what you love about this film?
Oh, this is just an incredible movie. This was one of the ones that I had forgotten was based on comic source material until I Googled, and it's the only one that made my list out of that sort of subsequent additions to the shortlist. I mean, it's such a unique story.
Yeah.
It has one of the best fight scenes in cinema history.
Yeah.
And to my mind, the biggest gut punch twist of any film ever.
This would also, if this list was, top 5 movie twists or something, this would also be
number 1 with a bullet. Yeah.
Yeah. Excellent. Yeah.
It's so good.
It really, really is. It's easy to forget that it's based on, a kind of comic source material, because I think Korean cinema kind of has that stylistic kind of flair to it anyway.
Yeah.
Like you think of, those real stylistic comic book adaptations. You go to things like Sin City, for example. Those kind of really over-stylized things. Old Boy kind of has its own unique style, but it's really, God, I love this film.
Just the idea of someone being just snatched off the street and trapped in a hotel room for 15 years.
Yeah.
15 years, Jesus Christ. And not knowing why he's there. It's, what a premise. And the denouement when he does get out and goes on his sort of revenge path. Yeah. My God, it's breathtaking. He's such a great filmmaker, Park Chan-wook.
Well, there you go. I wonder if we'll have any other crossovers. This will be interesting to see. What's your number 4 then?
My number 4. Okay, let me remember what order I've got these. Okay. Oh, no, number 4 is easy. Number 4 is as close as I'm going to come to a mainstream sort of comic book movie. And it is Deadpool.
Wow. Wow, definitely not on my list. Look, I like Deadpool fine. I'm one of the people who I think likes it less than the majority of the world. I think it's a good movie. But wow, number 4. Okay. All right. Tell us what you love about Deadpool.
It's a character that I never thought would actually make it to screen. Because...
Which is funny, because I actually think it's a character that was always designed to work on screen. Like the fourth wall breaking and stuff, which he always does in the comics. I think that translates really well to screen. Was it more just because of the kind of... Because of the kind of character he is, you didn't expect him to...
I think until they actually made this the idea of that fourth wall breaking, I don't think anyone kind of knew how to do it.
Yeah.
It's not something that you kind of get a lot of it now. You've had obviously She-Hulk since, and there's been other things where that sort of talking directly to the audience has become a bit of a thing. But I can't think of too many instances prior to Deadpool where it was done to this extent. And I think it was a brave move. I love the whole backstory behind this film, that Reynolds and co had been trying to make this for about 15 years. They had to wade through that god-awful Wolverine movie, which was such a fucking travesty. And I'm sure you're with me that the only good thing about that Wolverine Origins movie was Taylor Kitsch as Gambit, because he's John Carter and we love him. But to come back from that, still persevere with the belief that this character had a place, in a good film, and to finally hit the market with such an incredible translation of the Deadpool comics. I mean, this is, even if his career goes for the next 40 years, this will be the defining character in Ryan Reynolds' entire career.
For sure. 100% that is true.
He has made it his own. The sequel, I was tossed and turned as to which one to have, actually, but then I thought, I'll go the original, because it was the one that really sort of broke the mold for superhero films.
Yeah.
Even I mean, the sly jabs at the X-Men movies in this film, everything about it is just, it's so funny. It's so well done. Reynolds is so good. I've watched this countless times. I could, you put it on, I'm going to sit and watch it. It's so much fun.
Yeah. Nice. All right. Well, my number 4 is again a fairly, I would say, mainstream comic book movie. I think it's got some fantastic performances in it. And I am talking about Kick-Ass.
Unsurprisingly, it's in my shortlist, but my shortlist is almost 50, so tell us about Kick-Ass, my friend.
I love this film. I think the characters are great. I love this concept, and it's been done a couple of times, this concept of, a superhero who's really not a superhero at all. Just a guy who wants to be a superhero and gets wound into it. We've seen, I also really loved James Gunn's Super with Rainn Wilson, which also kind of plays with this concept.
Not a fan.
Really?
I found that it's not badly made, but I found it really uncomfortable.
Yes, yeah, and I think it's supposed to be.
I'm not knocking it. It wasn't what I expected, and I found my skin crawling through most of the film, because it's just.
I love an uncomfortable film.
It's kind of ooh.
Yeah, I love an uncomfortable film though, and we know that you don't do well with cringe.
Oh yeah, and that's the cringiest of all the superhero films for sure. But
yeah.
Anyway, Kick-Ass.
But Kick-Ass, I think Nicolas Cage is fantastic in this film as Big Daddy. Up until kind of the last 3-4 years, I think that this actually was his best performance. And I think that the chemistry between him and Chloe Grace Moretz, who is absolutely fantastic as his girl. Like this was an iconic performance, and I've quite liked her in just about everything I've seen her in since, but I don't think she's ever come close to the performance she got here when she was like 11 or something, like far too young to watch this film. Christopher Mintz-Plasse is fantastic. I always forget.
Mist.
Yeah, I forget the guy's name who actually plays Kick-Ass, but he also is great.
Aaron Taylor Johnson.
Holy fuck, is it actually?
Yeah, that's what's so funny about this. You've got 2 Quicksilvers in the one film playing best mates. Because Evan Peters is one of his 2 mates, along with what's his name? Clark, not Clark.
Yeah,
Gregg.
there you go.
Clark Duke.
But this movie is incredibly funny. It's touching, I think. I think it's got great stylistic value. Like, to me, when I think of a comic book kind of in this style, I know a lot of people go to a film that who knows, maybe it's on your list, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, which I personally fucking hate that movie. Edgar Wright ruined a great comic book. But, I think that this nails that kind of aesthetic and style. It's very It reminds me a lot of the old original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles comics. It's kind of gritty but silly all at once, and I think this film really lands that well. I love it.
Yeah, it's. I might be wrong, but the original comic, is that Mark Miller?
That does sound right. It's been a long time since I've read it, but that sounds right to me. Yeah.
Yeah, it's yeah. I really really like this film. And it was very close to making my list.
Yeah.
It's the idea of, and I mean, this is credit to, and I'm going to say Mark Miller. I'm going to give him the credit. It might not be him, but he's getting the credit now. Credit. This is not the film's credit, but the source material. But the idea of having someone who is obsessed with comics and superheroes, would love to be one.
Yeah.
And the only power they develop is that they can't feel pain.
Yeah.
They still take damage. He gets fucking brutally destroyed repeatedly in this film.
Yeah.
And the only power he has is that he can just kind of keep going because he doesn't feel it. He still has to deal with the injuries. I mean, that's just a wonderful idea, and it is done really, really well in the film.
Agreed. All right. Well, over to your number 4 then.
Alrighty, I think.
Oh, sorry. Number 4 or number 3?
No, three. Alrighty, then in that case we're up to. All right. So yeah, this was a last minute change out. I did have a film by a French director, which I'll mention in the honourable mentions, right up until literally moments before we recorded, and then it was a last minute change out, and what I have is Mike Hodges' Flash Gordon.
Right, yeah, okay. I rewatched this quite recently, actually, because you know me, I love my old camp kind of sci-fi movies. I love B-grade monster movies. I watched a fantastic one the other day called, what was it? Dinosaur Island, which was absolutely abysmal, but so great at the same time. And I rewatched Flash Gordon the other day. It's a lot of fun.
Oh, it's so much fun. I mean, it's like, full disclosure, it's not a great film. If objectively, the acting's not fantastic by many of the cast, including our fucking main character, who's played by a footballer who couldn't even make the A grade. But oh my god, it's such a unique experience. It's stylistically, it's just glorious. You've got Topol in there, fresh from Fiddler on the Roof. You've got Max von Sydow, for Christ's sake. I mean, our main hero and heroine, Sam Jones, and what's her name, Melody Johnson or something. It sounds like a porn actress. They're terrible. They're not good actors at all. But you've got Ornella Muti, who's just breathtakingly gorgeous. You've got Timothy Dalton chewing the scenery as what's his name? Prince. Fuck me, I've forgotten his name now. He's the Robin Hood guy in green, anyway. Brian Blessed. Bless his cotton socks. Fuck me. Prince Vulton. How can... He alone makes this worthy of inclusion.
100%.
It's just phenomenal. The design of the costumes, the sets, everything is so incredible. The Queen soundtrack obviously is iconic, even more than their other soundtrack for Highlander. This is just an amazing, amazing soundtrack. Yeah. And it is just camp joy from start to finish. I adore this film. Absolutely fucking love it. And obviously based on the 1930s Flash Gordon comic strips, but done in such a camp 80s way that could not be done now. It couldn't have been done in the 60s or 70s. It could only have been made in the 80s. Yep. And it's literally one of my favourite films of that decade. I love it so much.
Nice.
And I mean, poor old what's his name? Somebody Semple Jr. I think it is. The screenwriter who also did adapted the Batman comics to the 1960s Batman series. So he was the master of taking comic stuff and making it camp as fuck. So he copped a lot of shit for it. I don't care. It's fucking glorious.
Yeah, it's good fun. No, that's a good inclusion. I did not see that coming on your list. That's for sure. But maybe I should have. Maybe I should have seen that coming. I know you well enough now to know that could have come in there. All right,
hit me, mate.
My number 3 is by far the most recent film on my list, and by far the most successful and mainstream film on my list. Do you want to have a guess?
Does it involve a Spider-Verse?
It does, yeah.
Yeah.
I've gone with Into the Spider-Verse. I honestly I've still only seen it once, but my initial kind of gut feeling is that Across is even better. But, I need to give that time to sink in. But this movie is phenomenal. I really thought about not including it because you know me. I like to be a nonconformist. I'm like, it's too mainstream. But there's a fucking reason for it. And I couldn't not have it on this list because it genuinely is one of the best comic book films ever made.
If I was purely going... leaving heart out of it and just going, what are the best translations of a comic book onto screen? This would have been my number 2.
Yes, yeah. And Spider-Man is one of my all-time favorite characters.
Yep, same.
Spider-Man and Superman were the 2 comics that I religiously collected week after week. And I adored this translation so much. We spoke about the sequel at length last week, so I won't spend too long talking about it here. Is this on your list, or...?
It's not. And I lent much more onto kind of heart and... I
totally
guess
get that.
Almost to be contrarian, I guess.
No, I get that. Yeah, like I said, I very nearly did that. All right. Well, what's your number 2 then?
Number 2 is where I had Old Boy.
Okay. Yeah, nice.
Purely just because it is such an incredible film, and that's why it's so high. Nothing about it feels like a comic book. I have 100%. No familiarity with the manga at all. As I said, the only reason I know that is from Googling comic book adaptations. But as soon as I saw it there, I thought, I have to include it. It is one of my favorite films of all time. So back to you.
Knowing that you only have one left, I'm certain now that we won't have any crossover at all. But I'm hoping that you'll at least appreciate... If we don't,
then you deserve a spanking because my number 1 should be on every list.
Well, I'm hoping that you'll at least appreciate my top 2. My number 2 is The Crow.
Unsurprisingly in my short list, but my short list is not that short. No, I mean, I'm a big fan of Alex Proyas in general. Most of his films are not that well regarded, but I really like his style, and I've not disliked anything he's ever done.
Yeah, I love the style of this film. I'm a massive Cure fan. I've seen them live. I love the Cure. So this aesthetic and everything.
The soundtrack does a lot of heavy lifting with this film.
The soundtrack is amazing. I loved this film. I only saw it, I'm going to say recently, but I forget this show has been going for 6 years now. I think it was in the first year of the show that Topher and I had to watch it as a patron request. And I'd never seen it before that. And since then, I reckon I've watched it 4 or 5 times because...
I saw this in the cinema.
Oh, that would have
4 times.
Wow.
4 times.
Wow.
I think this came out. What was this? Like early 90s? Something like that. Yeah, I know I was at uni. I went to it. I literally went to it the next day, and then we managed to go 2 other times. Everything. I mean, I was well into my alternative goth phase at that point. And this was our Bible.
100%. This is the one film that putting on this list, I thought, if anything is going to get me backlash, not that people don't like this film, but this is the film that I think people are going to be like, really? You put this at number 2 over this and over that, and, where is The Dark Knight, blah, blah, blah. But
I would watch this before The Dark Knight. No slight 100%. On Nolan, but I have a lot more fondness for technically, 100%. The Dark Knight's fantastic, but The Dark Knight I don't have an emotional connection to. It's just a really fucking good film. that, you know, I can't really fault in any way, but I don't have I don't have an emotional hook into it the way I do with The Crow.
Yeah, 100%. So there you go. That's my number 2. So let's hear what your number 1 is then.
I just want to go and listen to that soundtrack now and listen to fucking My Life in the Thrill Kill Cult and go, After the Flash!
Because I don't think we can have crossover, but maybe I don't know.
All
we
right,
obviously
so,
both think our number 1 is worthy of being on every list, so maybe it's the same.
Fucking oath. Alrighty, my number 1 is Sin City.
Not on my list. It is in my shortlist. It is one of the
fucking hell!
It is one of the 3 films that did make my shortlist. So there you go. You've ticked off one of my honourable mentions.
I'm scrolling down my 47, going, what could possibly be better than Sin City? And you know what? Nothing. Nothing could be better than Sin City. This is the most
great film.
Perfect translation of, even more than Scott Pilgrim, which I almost had. Just to needle you. But I have never read the comics, so I thought, oh, like, I can't really talk to how well it's translated, and I know from you that it's probably not translated very well. To me, Scott Pilgrim comes off the screen as a comic book on screen. But I'm familiar with the Frank Miller source material here, so I know how fucking perfectly this is brought to screen, to the point where there are no credited screenwriters. It just says based on a graphic novel by. I mean, the cast are amazing. It looks incredible. This film was a revelation when I saw it in cinemas.
100%. What was it? 2003?
3 or 4.
Yeah.
Early 2000s anyway. And I mean, famously, Tarantino directed one scene, but famously co-directed between Miller and Robert Rodriguez, to the point where Rodriguez resigned from the Directors Guild of America just so they could be co-credited, because I don't know if they changed it, but certainly at that point you couldn't have more than one director credited on a film. And Rodriguez said, well, just put Miller. It's all his stuff. I did nothing. And Frank Miller refused to take sole credit, so Rodriguez resigned from the Directors Guild because it was the only way that they could be co-credited, which I think is, I mean, if you didn't have enough reason to love Robert Rodriguez, there's another one. One of Bruce Willis's best roles, probably Mickey Rourke's best role, and I'm the biggest fan of Angel Heart in the world, and The Wrestler was great, but fuck me, he is amazing in this.
100%. Oh, the entire cast is
Jessica
amazing.
Alba. Oh my God, in this film. Clive Owen. Oh my God. Elijah Wood. Jesus Christ, he's good in this.
Yeah.
I mean, this film is so good. I haven't seen it in a few years. I really want to get it on 4K because I reckon it would just slap on a big screen.
I know it's disappointed you that it's not in my 5, but it should comfort you to know that, like I said, I only have 8 films on my list, and this is
it's in your top 8.
In fact, I have it written as number 6. So
even better.
I very nearly slotted in there.
Yeah.
It is a fantastic film. It's so well made. You've spoken so well about why this film is great. It really is great. And to me, not only is it one of the best comic book adaptations, it's one of the best
if we were doing top 5
films.
Noir films, it'd be certainly at the gates to make my list.
It's one of the best anthology films.
Really
this was one of the first films I remember seeing that really nailed the anthologies.
It did. I should
short stories.
mention it. It's not based on a single graphic novel. It's based on individual short stories and seamlessly woven together into
100%.
A cohesive film, even though your protagonist changes multiple times, the stories change. They're very spuriously interconnected. It's not like they all run into one another, but it's so well stitched together. It's almost a shame that Rodriguez gets no credit for screenwriting, because it's not just a case of filming chapters. It does work as a cohesive film, even though it is chapter based. It's not like actually Pulp Fiction's a good analogy as well, because that's another one where it's very chapter based. You could imagine Pulp Fiction, even though it wasn't being based on individual short stories, but somehow it's seamlessly stitched together into a single feature film.
Yep, 100%. Yep, I agree. All right.
All right. I have no idea where you're going to go in the next few seconds, so hit me.
I'm sure that here's the thing about this next film. This is the only film on my list that is completely removed from what one would typically think of when they think of a graphic novel.
Can I have a guess?
Sure.
Does yours have Paul Newman in it?
Paul Newman? No.
Okay, in that case, I've got nothing.
What was your guess?
Road to Perdition.
No.
Okay.
This is even further removed than that. This is
Wow.
not actually. This is very slice of life. I am talking about American Splendor.
Oh, fucking Harvey Picar, of course.
Yes, Harvey Picar, based on
Shortlisted.
his
Yep.
kind of self-biographical, very loose, and it's absolutely
It's a
fantastic.
brilliant film.
I love this film. Paul Giamatti
It's his
fucking
best
crushes this
role ever. Yeah.
Absolutely. And this was, as soon as we came up with the idea of this list, this was the one that I knew would be on here. There was another one on my shortlist, Ghost World.
Oh, so yeah, Terry Swigoff's Ghost World. I was going to say
Yep.
that and American Splendor were both very, very close to my list.
Yeah. I just love this film. This is my kind of film to a T. It's that kind of very, very alternative, offbeat kind of slice of life. It's just fantastic. Paul Giamatti, I can't say enough about how good he is in this role. Like, he absolutely crushes it. Harvey Picar is so... There's something about him that's hateable. He's a real piece of shit.
He's not a hero. He's a protagonist. He's not a hero.
Yeah, that's right. And yet he's also quite relatable. Maybe that says more about me than about anything else. But maybe I'm a bit of a
I
piece
think
of shit too.
he's a realistic character. He's
100%,
not a in any way a larger than life comic book character the way you would expect a comic book character to be.
Yeah.
Which that comes down to the source material. This is not a
absolutely.
superhero comic. This is that very sort of what was it, 70s?
Yep. Yeah.
And there was and that's when you got a lot of this sort of very real or sort of grungy comics. I think it's that decade's when you got all sorts of what was that really beatnik comic? Used to read it. Stoner guys with long hair. Can't remember. A lot of that sort of counterculture comic material came all in the 70s. Self-published, a lot of it. Really, really offbeat, grungy stuff.
And I love this film, journaling kind of Harvey Picar's struggle with cancer, and it's very real world subject, but I still think that this film does a really good job of translating that comic book style and tone. I think it feels like a comic book, even though it's so not traditionally what we think of when we think of the phrase comic book. Big fan of this movie. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. Early 2000s, like I said, Paul Giamatti, this is absolutely the best thing he's ever done and likely ever will do. Just fantastic.
100%. It's the pinnacle of his career, and quite rightly so. Fantastic film.
Yeah. All right, well, there you go. That's our top 5. You've heard 2 out of my 3 shortlisted films, which were Ghost World and Sin City. The only other one I had on my shortlist was Batman Begins, which honestly, for me, I think is the best of the Nolan trilogy.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I know that I'm on an island of one there, but I think that it actually does a really good job of showing us Batman's origins, which is a feat when you think about how many fucking times that's been translated to film.
Yeah.
I think
I wouldn't argue with you. I mean, The Dark Knight gets a lot of applaud, but I think a lot of the love for Dark Knight comes down to Heath Ledger's Joker.
Absolutely, yeah.
And it kind of elevates that film, and not unjustly. It's a phenomenal performance, but Batman Begins is a great. It's probably the best Batman origin story we've seen.
And I actually love Katie Holmes in that role. I think that she does a much better job than Gyllenhaal, which I never thought I'd say because I love Maggie Gyllenhaal, but
Yeah, she belongs in The Secretary. I
can't.
can't see her in anything else without seeing her in The Secretary.
Do you want to run us through maybe just five or so of your...
I'll give a handful of the ones that almost made it. Because I had hardware, I kind of kept myself from any 2000 AD stuff, or I would have had Dread in there.
Yeah.
Because I think that is the perfect
I thought
film
Dread
adaptation
might make your
of
list,
Dread. And yeah, fingers crossed, everyone. There's still a chance for a sequel. It keeps being to the internet. What else? V for Vendetta was very close to making my list. I think that's an incredible film.
I do love that movie.
Do you remember an animated film called When the Wind Blows?
No, I don't.
It was a graphic novel about a nuclear bomb going off, and just kind of looking at this middle-aged, everyday couple. Really, really affecting stuff. It hit right when I was quite young, maybe even preteen. I might have been around sort of 9 or 10 or something. And I remember this comic book, When the Wind Blows, and I think we may have even had it in school. And I know a lot of schools had it on the syllabus because it was it touched on nuclear development and everything, which in the sort of early 80s was still quite topical. We weren't building bunkers in the basement at that point, but it was very much the Reagan era. And it's a beautiful story. It may have even won the Pulitzer or something along those lines. I know it was highly regarded, and it's a perfect film adaptation. Really, you would love it. It's right up your alley.
Nice.
I mentioned Flash Gordon was a late addition. Right up until the last minute, I had Roger Vadim's Barbarella. With Jane Fonda, which I have a huge amount of love for. Not least because it gave us the band name Duran Duran. So, it's in the zeitgeist for that, if nothing else. Snowpiercer was close. It's not a great film, but I love it because it's such a gore fest. There's a film called Ricky-O, The Story of Ricky.
Right.
Which is a Asian sort of martial arts, over the top, people punching through one another and ripping people it's a lot of fun. The only other one I'll give a mention to is Blue is the Warmest Color. That was very close to my list. I think that's a beautiful film. And that was the only other one that came out of my Googling that I had no idea was based on comic book source material. But it's just a beautiful, beautiful film.
Nice. All right. This was a lot of fun, and I can't believe that we only had one crossover.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm really keen. Please, I will try and get my full list up in the Facebook group later this evening.
I made you an admin, so you can post in there now. I saw you've been posting a few things.
I'll chuck that up. Please comment. I would love to hear what people think of things on there. I'm sure there will be things in there like maybe New Mutants that people think are trash, and I would love and welcome the conversation.
Next time we do one of these top fives, we really need to get our act together to post in the group first and get people to give us some shortlists that we can read out. We should definitely get in the habit of that. But
100%.
Speaking of crossovers and comic books, are you excited for what we're getting to next week, mate?
Where are we at next week? What have we
Think about it. Crossovers, comic books. What's been waiting to open for a very long time, and I honestly thought they were going to cancel it due to some problematic stars.
Oh, Ezra.
We're getting to the Flash, mate.
Ezra.
I need to know. I need to know this. Are you excited for the Flash?
Oh, look, I thought it was going to be trash. The trailer. Look, the trailer's not great.
I haven't seen a trailer at all.
I've seen one trailer. There's some stuff in there that I'm expecting that we're going to tear shreds off. But there is some stuff in there that I'm going, I didn't know that was going to be in it. Oh, that's kind of, maybe that's kind of, it could be fun.
fairly good reviews so far. It's certainly getting better reviews than Indiana Jones.
Oh wow! What an achievement!
So I'm curious because, as people know, I'm actually not a huge fan of these movies. I haven't seen a lot of the recent DC films. I never got to Black Adam. Did you?
Lucky you. It's fucking garbage. Such a gigantic vanity
really,
wankfest.
I'm mostly curious to see this film just because of what's been happening with DC, and like they cancelled Batgirl, for example, a film that was completely finished. I kind of don't understand why this film is being released even, and so I'm just so curious to see it, just to try and wrap my head around how this is happening at this point.
I think there's enough kind of fan stuff in there that they think that they assumed that it's going to do well. You know, they're ticking so many boxes. You've got Keaton as Batman.
Keaton was also in Batgirl.
Was he in it a lot though?
I don't know.
He says, "Let's get crazy in this one." I've seen the trailer. I saw it. That's already enough for like 1 billion people to go and see it. Because
does he say have you ever danced with the devil in the pale moonlight? I fucking hope so.
No, that was Jack Nicholson. Imagine if Nicholson makes a cameo.
That would be really, really cool. Yeah. All right, well there you go. That's next week, so that'll be a bit exciting. In the meantime, if you want to get in touch with us, you can do that at wewatchedathing.com or wewatchedathing@gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, all under the handle at wewatchedathing, where you'll be able to find Dave's list and tell him that he's dumb.
Come tell me I'm dumb. I dare you.
If you want to help support the show, you can do that at patreon.com/wewatchedathing, and we'll catch you next week.
See ya.